What's up, everybody? Welcome to TPI, the Total Podcast Idiots Show. I'm idiot number one, Andrew, and I'm joined by idiot number two at this point. Rob is dealing with some stuff, but yeah, Chris, welcome, Chris. How you doing?
Pretty good, Andrew. Hope you had a good weekend. Hope you had some good hardwood action, and yeah, it's not been too bad over here. Kind of killing it in Division Two for now. So took down the
Yeah, you
top
are.
in our conference, which feels good.
Yeah.
What about you? How's Dominican doing?
Well, we're doing all right. I think I'd say we're having a good start to the season. We're undefeated to start the season. Um, looking all right. We signed our top target in recruiting, which is
Yep,
nice. Nothing compared to your top target that you signed like day one,
that's true. I think it was very it might have been day one, but I remember I got
I
blown
think it
out by
was.
Maryland. I was very pissed off and
Yeah, you
confused. I mean,
were.
Cop Daddy has a great team. I think if we played again, I think he'd still beat me, but I don't think it would have been as much.
Mhm.
And I was like, man, I was so excited for the Division Two challenge just to get like pumped in the first game, and then I checked the recruiting, and it was just like didn't matter. Everything was good in the world, and apparently, when you put 160 something contacts into a player, they commit to you. So that's a good hardwood, little nugget of knowledge there.
I mean, yeah, 160 contacts is tough to beat. That's like uh four thirds of a season, like one full season plus another third worth of contacts.
Yeah, it shouldn't have had to be
Yeah.
that many. I know you know the story, but I was on him as a newly recruited sophomore,
Hmm.
14 pop point guard. He was super short. I think he was like 5'5", but I was hoping he can get to 6 feet. He's got crazy range. And then when I demoted down to LO5, he went from very high to medium plus.
Yeah, yeah.
And then we had the next hit, which was I think there was another. It was some other penalty.
Yeah,
We
you
got
had like two drops.
Yeah, there
Yeah.
were two drops, and then because I fired an assistant coach and he went from very high to medium plus, and I was like, that doesn't make sense. So I don't think that's why it had to have been a different drop. And then like 2 hours later, he went to low plus plus, and I was like, oh my god. like,
Yeah.
thankfully Stanford didn't log on, which was helpful. So I appreciate that. And then Florida International, I think, tried to get in and get him committed, but he decided to be a Titan. Who doesn't want to be a Titan? So great.
Exactly. Yeah. Um, we're talking about Charles Reinhardt, the currently number three prospect in the nation in this
Yep.
class. Um, and yeah, I mean, I don't know exactly what those drops were attributed to. I think obviously like demotion was
Yeah.
probably one of them. Um, Firing the assistant probably had a factor. Um, but I don't know what else, like redshirting penalty, I think maybe part of it too.
Yeah, all my guys, all my 3-star dudes getting redshirted, that is going to kick in and notice, because I know the previous president wasn't doing that. So maybe
Yeah.
that kicks in. But it was a weird situation because I didn't want to post it in the Discord. And I know I was really talking to you about it and Rob about it a little, and I didn't want to just go in, hey, look at my, I'm an LO5, like we're really bad now. Look at my 5-star prospect that is super open. And so I kind of had to keep it under wraps, but I mean, it felt very bad at the flip being like, I'm going to have this great plan. We're going to find this elusive big man that never generates. And then I ended up putting all 45 of my points into into a guy I'd already had it very high the season before. So
Yeah, because you
it
wanted
worked
to try
out.
and make it up. Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, I went off of him like 2 times. I think I slept on it. I was like, we're not going to do it. But thankfully it worked out, and I'm really excited to see what he can do. He definitely will not be getting redshirted because I've heard that is like the worst thing in the world, that penalty. So I'm excited to see where he'll play. I think he'll play a lot as a sophomore, most likely.
Cool. Nice. Yeah. Well, congrats again. Um,
He's no
yeah.
hawk.
So yeah, he's pretty good. He's pretty good though. So obviously we're back after taking last week off. I had a little thing to go to. Um, but yeah, we're back, and so I think we're going to talk about teams off to hot starts, whether that's record wise or RPI wise. And then we're going to look at the top prospects, some of whom have already committed, obviously. I think the top three prospects in this class, at least domestically, have committed already, which is pretty interesting, I think. So yeah, let's take a look at Hardwood here. So these are, let's do this way. These are RPI rankings up here. So yeah, I mean, you can see who ranks where. And I think one of the interesting things that we were just talking about beforehand is that, teams, obviously we expect teams that are undefeated or like with really good records to be highly ranked in RPI, right?
Yep, for sure.
But it's these teams that have like not a ton of losses, but more losses. Like Co here at 7-4, Molenberg at 6-5, even. These teams that have like more losses that are still highly ranked, do you think that bodes well for a team season or bad? Is it an omen?
Right. I mean, if here's the way I look at it, right? You might have had some bad games, maybe some injuries, whatever. I feel like the better or the higher your RPI, the better, in case you want a nice seed, anything like that. And it seems like the game does rely on that quite a bit, like they would in real life. But it can't feel good, when you look at, and maybe it's close losses to great teams. I mean, we're not diving into all of these, but it probably doesn't feel great to be 6-5 or 7-4 this early in the season when your RPI is high. Maybe that means you had higher aspirations, you're a higher ranked team, but it's being up there with some of those undefeated teams. It is wild to see, I think, right?
Yeah. I think it's pretty wild too, because like I would definitely prefer a higher RPI with a worse record.
Yeah.
Relatively, of course. Than like undefeated with a really crappy RPI, I mean, I think it's all context dependent, of course. Like you said, injuries could have played a factor.
Yep.
But yeah, I mean, like the algorithm for picking seeding and at-large teams and the tourney in general, like it doesn't seem to take into account like head-to-head wins. So like, the 5 teams that beat Molenberg, like in real life, they might be able to make a case like we beat Molenberg, who had this high RPI and ends up having a really good season.
Right.
And that would count for something. But like here in Hardwood, I don't know if that really will count for as much,
And that's a good way to put it, because I think it's already like a computer simulation. So I think the human element's just gone. So I think you're right that it's almost like how good is it? Like, if it's not going to be a bunch of people deciding, you can say something is a quality loss, or what does the computer deem as a quality loss? Do quality losses exist in Hardwood? I think that's something to look forward to, but to think about. But when you look at Co's schedule, I've got him pulled up here. They had a 4-game losing streak, right?
Oh, wow.
It started with number 2 NYU, then they lost against number 3 Georgia Tech, and then lost at Pace. Those are 3 really good teams.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's not, I can understand why, the RPI reflects that. Then they had a loss to Ashland, which I think is a Division II team at home. So that's one of those ones where we've talked about it. Hardwood has the weirdest slumps. Sometimes you just lose a couple games in a row that you're meant to, and then your team just throws out a stinker that makes no sense. And that might be what that is. Maybe there were injuries that led to that. But
yeah.
I mean, those aren't bad losses in a lot of those cases. You're playing some of the best teams in the country. So
I mean, these are pretty wide margins, like a 34-point loss, a 20-point loss. And like the Ashland loss is definitely the worst loss of the 4.
21.
Yeah. No shame in losing these games, I don't think. In Pace too. But like, I mean, I wouldn't say any of them are like quality losses, I guess.
Yeah. Probably want to see a little closer. I mean, you could argue the NYU game, losing to the number 2 team in the country by 13 points at home. But I mean, even then, they aren't super close. But and this isn't to call out Co or, to point out that they're not having a good season, because they seem to have a good roster and they just had some tough games. But it is an interesting thought to think about, right? When you look at the
for sure.
rankings.
Yeah, definitely. So, I mean, it's kind of interesting because like clearly they played a tough schedule.
Yeah.
And that's boosting their RPI. And it looked like they had some quality wins, I'd say. So, I think they're having a good season on the whole, but like then you start to ask yourself, if I'm Co's president, are we really built for, a postseason run, promotion?
Yeah.
because at some level, like I want to see my teams perform and like trust them that they can beat good teams. Like I don't just want to beat bad teams and puff up my point differential and all that,
Yeah, I think too. That is probably the biggest thing you can take away from it as a president is, how does this impact my projection? Because I think we all go into a season, right? Whether we purposely do it or just kind of think to ourselves of where do we project our season? What would be a good season, right? And I know that might be promotion, that might be making the tournament, that might be not demoting. And I would imagine looking at Co's roster right now, their roster is pretty solid. I think they might have had some high expectations, and maybe they have to reevaluate that stuff sometimes whenever you have those losses. But I did look, at least against the Ashland loss, they had two of their best players out. They don't have a lot of deep size. Maybe that's the issue, and you just hope to stay healthy. But that's Hardwood, right? Injuries are going to happen.
Yeah. In talking about, I know we're harping on Co and Mullenberg, but I think those two just definitely stand out.
Yes.
They have two of the three lowest RPIs in the top 20. The other third team being Tufts up here, who's having a good season in LL2 here, and even higher in RPI. So that's kind of surprising that Tufts is doing so well. But like, maybe it's that TPI that's it's lower and it might be in good places still, but like, maybe that's a contributing factor to just the pure number of losses, no matter, when they go up against an NYU or Georgia Tech, right? You're just outmatched.
Yeah, and I think a lot of the times, not only is it the top end talent, but the depth that those teams have, right? Because to be a top, with Dominican, to be a top 10 team, you have to have guys that can fill in when you have injuries, or you can have guys that roll 2-3 deep sometimes because you're going to need it throughout the season. Look at teams like Ole Miss, right, in the tournament where you lose a guy or two, that can take care of your season unless you've got some good backups. So
for sure, yeah,
that might be the difference when you look at the TPI. I think that does correlate a little bit.
Yeah, and I know it was kind of talked about in the forums a little bit more about like development rates and minutes correlation. But it kind of got onto like team building philosophy, I think, which is always interesting to me with like the depth. Do you go for a more deep roster or more like star laden team? My team, Dominican, like we've definitely been probably more deep, I'd say. So yeah, I've definitely had guys who can just like step in for an injury that like I know I can trust giving more minutes to.
Right.
Like I have like a 160 combo forward coming off my bench just because like I have to start Brian Hoffmeister and I have a 13 pot power forward, and then I have a 7-foot guy at center, but if Hoffmeister or Span gets hurt or Reyes, like I know I can bring that guy in and I'll be fine.
Yeah, and I think like that's what you see as you've been with the team a little longer, or you've just really got your recruiting strategy worked out, which I think is fair to say with Dominican. Like when you go into a season, what you're looking for. It might not be there, but the type of player you're looking for. And talking with you even about it just directly has been fascinating because you have it broken down to the specific attributes you like for which position, or guys that can play different positions. Not to give away too much of the recipe, but I think that can be really important here because that does lead to that type of depth that a lot of these teams seem to have. Because you see teams like Vanderbilt, or you see teams that do have those star-laden rosters, and they're going to beat the hell out of a lot of teams, but they aren't going to win a lot of those big championships, it feels like, because injuries happen in Hardwood and you have to have depth.
Yeah, for sure.
That's philosophy difference. So
I guess for me, it's not even like a team like Vanderbilt can succeed. They did last year, they promoted along with me. For me, it's more or less like the stress level that I would feel fielding a team like that. I just would never feel comfortable with running that team out there in the way that they did. That's just who I am.
I think that's because you logged in like once every 2 weeks and just auto depth charted, so it's all good. You don't have to worry about that.
True,
But
yeah.
no, I think you're right there that and that's just, our philosophies on it. I'd be interested to see some more discussion on the Discord, which I know, this will happen at some point, but like just even goes down to the recruiting, right? The scholarships, like how many scholarships do you carry over? Do you carry over at all? How many do you want to recruit for? I asked that question a little while back when I'm like, how far ahead are you looking at prospects for guys that are on your roster? Like if you've got a sophomore, do you need an incoming freshman that plays the same position, or do you need an incoming, like a high school junior? And we got a lot of different responses. And I think that's what makes the game so interesting because, we're all people. We have different perspectives on how to do well in this game. And then a lot of times success is given by different routes. So I think that as I know, I'm just going on a tangent about it. I think that's one of the more fascinating parts of Hardwood. It's just seeing how people construct their rosters and kind of what comes from that.
Definitely. Yeah. And like, I think it was Naf who had like the response that I most resonated with.
Yeah.
Like I definitely try to space it out, 2 years. So like, yeah, if I have a redshirt sophomore, I'd want to be bringing in a recruit who is that same position. So I have like a senior point guard. I'd also have a redshirt senior point guard. I'd also have a redshirt sophomore point guard, and then I'd be bringing in a recruit. But I mean, things change, based on different developments and growth. So, you can plan it out, but, things definitely change and make you adjust. And I've had to deal with that a lot, and I get frustrated sometimes. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. Like, I think you got to have both. You got to plan, but you also got to be able to adjust,
Yeah, I think that's a lot of what, I mean, it's recruiting, right? It's not an exact science and nobody gets 100% of the players they go after.
Yeah.
So I think that you could have, you could be, especially with, let's talk big men on the West Coast, good God, but you could be looking at a guy, lose out on somebody. And then the question is, well, I really would like to take somebody to follow along with my path that I typically take this year. I don't think anybody's going to play serious minutes for me that's left until maybe a redshirt junior or redshirt senior year. And that's where that philosophy kind of has to change on the fly. And you can still do that without, having to, I feel like, affect the overall philosophy. It can be a blip in it. It can be a small change, but you have to adapt. Because if you say to yourself, I'm taking a big man at the flip, and the only one that generates is a 2-star that's 6'8" with bad defense, like you're like, well, maybe I don't want that guy. So I move it on, or you find something else. Like, I think that really is what a lot of these good teams do.
But I think that's also the hardest question to face in this game, because I faced it a bunch. When you lose out on that recruit, do you go for a lesser option who obviously won't be as good, and then will they be ready to come in when you want them to, or do you adjust your expectations for them and just say, okay, you're going to be a backup, I'm going to get the starter another time? Or do you just roll it over, like you said, and go for a high level prospect, or that same level that you lost out on, and then they can come in, maybe it's a year delayed, or maybe you don't redshirt them and they come in at the same timeline. I mean, I think that's a bunch of the math you have to do in all of this. And there's no one easy answer. We all have different philosophies with it. Every player is different too. So it's tough.
Yeah, and I would say, obviously, I'm newer to this game than you are, and the recruiting at Fullerton's been.
You're gaining you're gaining a lot of experience.
Yeah, but I think the thing I've learned the most, I kind of like the idea of having a scholarship to play with some years, because I ran into that this year with UCA, where there's a guy. I had 2 scholarships open because we'd taken, I think, a couple more the year before, but maybe instead of loading up on a guy that might be as a current freshman, that might be a depth guy, there were some really good new gens in the South this year that don't have a lot of competition on them because many people have their classes wrapped up. And I think that's something that I just straight up missed out on because I don't have the resources available the way I've tracked it out. And I think that it's always nice to kind of have that card, the ace in the hole or ace in the back pocket, where you can play it and you can really make your team better just based on what happens at the flip. And I know it's never good to go to the flip expecting good things, because we all do it. And, most of the time we're disappointed, but you never know, so it is possible. I don't see any Hofmeisters coming through that the senior portal or whatever you want to call it whenever they become newly generated. But you never know, it could happen, and you could kind of put yourself in a bad situation by not having those resources available.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. Let's take a look at these undefeated teams here. That's
Absolutely.
the other way. Actually, there's more than that. I got to go. They show the entire ranking, and then
Good job, guys. Wow. Oh no.
Yeah, I can't count that many teams, but there's quite a few undefeated teams still. Georgia Tech here having a really good season in LL2. Florida Gulf Coast, I gotta watch out for them. That's because they're in my conference.
No joke.
And with Western Washington can't dismiss them. Yeah, that 2-3-4, and then Alabama at 7. Plockman having a good season. Down in LL4 now. He demoted. They demoted, but
look at the TPI, right? Like the TPI is very clearly high enough to be a top. Oh, sorry. It's so for Alabama, it's a 1.1, right?
For me, our faces were blocked already.
Oh, okay. But I'm saying like they're gonna kill it in LL4 this year, right? Like I don't think there's any question about that. So
just like facing them last season in LL3, like they had a really scary team. It's just really unfortunate that they had some bad luck and some poor losses that didn't go their way, that they demoted. But they had a good team last season, and now they get to go down a division and crush people.
Beat the hell out of teams. Yeah, and I think if I'm right too, he was starting. I think he was starting or playing some serious minutes on a freshman last year, maybe 2 freshmen that were 5-star guys. Those guys are going to be more seasoned now. I mean, I played him with UCA. I think we went to Tuscaloosa, and they just beat us pretty soundly. I mean, they've got that depth that you see at those higher levels that a lot of LL4 teams might not have, and I think that's going to make them a really scary team potentially come tournament time too.
Yeah, I think if there's an LL4 team to watch, it's Alabama right now for sure.
Yeah.
Like we see Augustana and Sioux Falls here. I mean, sure, they're solid. They're having good seasons. I think Augustana. I don't know much about Sioux Falls. I mean, let's click. I feel bad about that now. Let's see. 168, 6'5", small forward. They have some nice perimeter threats, but then here, I guess Menendez is good. Yeah, that's a good player.
Yeah, good rebounder, solid defender.
But who's their other guy? Dickinson, I guess here. He's decent. But
there's a drop off there though. There's
for sure. Yeah, and Menendez he's under 200 pounds. Like that. Wow. I don't know. It's an LL4, so it's probably not that big a deal. But you come up to LL3, LL2, you're getting beat up.
Yeah, that's one thing that I've kind of noticed too. Is it's so funny that now that I'm an LL5, my best big has been undersized and pretty bad for most of his career, and now he's destroying people, which is fantastic. So
yeah,
it's funny to see the difference.
I told you Michalski is going to be good.
He's actually a monster right now. I think he had his career high the other day, 30 something points, and I was like, we're gonna have to hang his jersey in the rafters. So I'm really excited.
Nice. Minnesota State. I know NAF has talked a lot about them, and C. Dilks, the president there. Minnesota State, we've talked about them a bunch. They're huge,
for sure.
Right? I mean, I think they said a 6'9" height starting lineup average.
Yeah. They're the Kingsville of this generation. So
yeah, no kidding. And bring 2 7-footers off the bench as well. I mean, yeah, that's gonna be tough.
I like one, let alone. So
then we got this team here, and then
another team in your division too, your conference, Cal State Dominguez Hills, who's been a pretty big mainstay. I mean, they recruit well. They've got a good roster, so that's another scary one there.
Yeah, definitely. I'm gonna have to watch out for them. They have a solid RPI, obviously undefeated. Their strength of schedule hasn't been great, although mine hasn't been much better, I suppose.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, they're definitely dangerous. They're a really deep, balanced team. So yeah, I'm gonna have to game plan pretty hard for Holocron's team for sure.
I think the one that really fascinates me, and it shouldn't be much of a surprise, as I'm trying to find the ranking myself, is Kansas State, right?
Yeah, I was just looking at them.
bot program now, I think, right? They just went bot.
I believe they just went bot. Yeah.
Yeah. So they're one of those teams that it's probably a Butler situation unless a really solid president takes over. But their roster is good. It seems like they've beaten the hell out of some teams this year. And it's just weird to see a bot team up there that high, 23-day injury. Good gosh.
23-day injury. Yeah.
What did he do?
Yeah. Wrist fracture.
Okay. People tear their ACL in this game and they're out for 7 days. So this guy, just shoot with the other hand, man. Let's get something out there.
He might have to have his hand amputated.
Yeah, right. Get a sick robot hand. No joke.
Yeah. It's unfortunate they went bot, but it's gonna end up like a Butler situation for sure eventually. Like Butler was still top of Legends
for 2 years, right?
Yeah, for like a good while, even though they were bought, and then they just started to fall off hard, and they're really gonna fall very hard now.
Yeah, that's gonna be one that I think is a intriguing. It's like getting a Rolls Royce, right? That just doesn't run, right? Like that's what Butler is with their prestige in their program. They're a really, really good school. They're one of the best in Hardwood history, but they're going to just fall. Like, I mean, there's no stopping it. It's just about how can you cushion it, really.
Yeah. Just looking at these one-loss teams, obviously still having a good season, a bunch of them. North Greenville and Legends here, Lipscomb.
Yep.
I mean, Geneseo, my old team here, the new president hasn't logged in still.
Somebody take your shell, please.
Oh man. I mean, like some solid seasons. I mean, Penn State, obviously East Tennessee State here, Kiefer's team. I mean, they're all teams to watch out for, and you get a lot more smattering of like LO4 and LO3 teams here versus like this is like LO2, LO3, I think.
Yeah, it's very LO2, LO3 heavy.
Yeah.
Which I know we've seen in the past, right? Where and this isn't any indication of this necessarily with this early, but I know we've seen past years where LL2 might be scarier than Legends, and that might be one of the years. There's a lot of really good teams there.
I don't think that's the case this season, to be honest. I think Legends is really good this season. Mm-hmm. Obviously Huntington at the top, but NYU, Tennessee, Chow in here, Louisville, and it's 5 in the top 14. So
that's fair. That's fair.
Yeah, they're going to be pretty good.
You can tell I've done my research.
No, I mean it's not. I didn't know this off the top of my head. I just kind of like remembered from early looks. Right. Let's look at the top prospects while we've got a little bit of time left.
Yeah, absolutely.
We're keeping it short.
We've got the top 3. I mean that's pretty impressive. And then what is it? 5 of the top 6. That's crazy.
5 of the top 6. Yeah. I mean, obviously we talked about Reinhardt earlier. We've talked about Derek Campbell a lot. Being in the first 16 pot. All point. Well, I think.
Grain of salt. You're right. They're not going to be all point guards, but it is kind of wild to see.
I think with high school, like they tend to go towards point guard or center is like where the elite prospects go more towards, Yeah.
Just fair. It's kind of like putting the most athletic kid at quarterback or having the most athletic kid be your starting pitcher. I mean, that it makes sense. Yeah. But it's just something that when you're looking at the positions, you see all those guards. It's like, shoot, man, where's some big
get the ball in your best player's hands, right? Yeah. That type of thing. Yeah.
DeLucia,
they're going to have the most impact.
DeLucia looks really good. I know I think we've talked about him before a little bit when we looked at junior.
A little bit, yeah. I think we've talked about him a little bit.
And then Campbell's one that we, jokingly, I think referred to as the next LeBron James at one point, just because that's 16 pot out of Ohio. Size-wise, he might not get there, but, I don't know if he's going to be 6'8", 280 or whatever LeBron says he is now. But I think, look at those high school statistics, right? 20 and 24 points a game. It's insane.
Yeah, that's insane. Yeah. Oh, my gosh. Christensen and Simpson here both, appear to be decent. I mean, Christensen being just 12 pot, I think you're a little concerned about like his ceiling.
Yeah, absolutely. 132. I think he's a guy, and granted, I know a lot of people don't redshirt 5 stars at all, but with a guy like Campbell, right, I could see the discussion of, do you redshirt him and see what 16 pot looks like?
Yeah.
But with a guy like Christensen, I think
Hmm.
that you play him and you don't ask any questions about it, just because he's going to tap
Yeah.
out probably by his junior year, I would think. So
Right. Yeah.
maybe
Wow.
even more.
To think that's four points potential difference is crazy to
Oh,
me.
it's huge. Yeah,
Right.
it's absolutely huge, and I don't think we've seen no 16 pots have gone are upperclassmen, right? In
I don't
Hardwood
think
right
so.
now. So yeah, so I
Yeah.
mean it's I'd be tempted to redshirt him. I probably wouldn't have the guts to do it, but I think it'd be really interesting to see what he's like as a redshirt senior.
In like potential in this game, I believe is linear. It's not exponential,
Yeah.
you know, or logarithmic, I guess. So like this is the same difference as a 12 pot versus an 8 pot, right?
Yeah, but when you look at when
I
you look
mean, none of us would ever go after an 8 pot, right? So that's crazy to me. And like, Christensen's not a bad player. So it's like, what?
oh
Oh my gosh.
yeah, not at all. But I mean, I think Campbell's just one of those guys, and if I'm correct, Toledo jumped on him very hard early. And granted,
Yeah.
a lot of those, I think he was a newly gen, maybe freshman or maybe sophomore, but a lot of those guys, they get the comp so early because you see that 16 potential, and you've got out of state teams coming for that. You've got every good team in region.
Yeah.
Toledo's getting an absolute monster with Derek
Yeah.
Campbell, which is crazy
Yeah.
to say because DeLucia has 10 SI higher than he has, which is, he's already
Yeah.
at the starting point. So
I know. Yeah, that's crazy actually. Yeah, that's insane.
also, we got to say
Yeah.
that Louis Simpson, no, I'm sorry, Jack Connor, 12 points a game is a 5-star. You got to get that up.
Oh,
That's,
what is he
I'm
doing
just,
Yeah.
yeah.
That's funny. Yeah, that's interesting.
Daniel
That he's
Ashworth, right? We have to talk Daniel Ashworth.
Yeah, I mean the top Canadian for
Yeah.
a while. I mean, he's been on our radar for a number of years. So he finally commits to Moorhead State.
As an
Um,
academic, or he's not very good in school. So that was surprising,
I mean, school in Canada is just so much worse, right? Just kidding. We're just
Yeah,
kidding.
make sure to direct the hate to Andrew on that one.
No, I mean, I bet schools in Canada are much better than those in the US. So.
Yeah, that's the grim reality. I'm sure that's true. Probably.
Yeah, so I mean, Jerome Humphrey going to Cal State LA. I really like Jerome Humphrey. I mean, obviously he's not a power forward, but like I think he could be a point guard or shooting guard. He's had like really good SI development rates.
Oh yeah.
And like I think he has good comments. I mean, so Cal State LA again, a nice player. I mean, a little bit of a constellation for losing out on Hoffmeister last season. Got to rub that in. Sorry,
He's got to get a 5-star now, right? I think Humphrey was a guy because he generated the exact same time as Reinhardt, and I think when I looked at him, I was like, this is a guy who's a really good combo guard. I probably would play him a little more at 2 guard, but I think he's going to be a really good player. I think that he just was outclassed a little bit by some of these other guys, and he also plays power forward in high school, which is very strange because he's not super big. Hardwood does that sometimes too, where it's like a guy will be 6 feet tall, and it's like, yep, throw him at center, and that's whatever, but. Yeah, I mean, Cal State LA Lane's a good one, and obviously they're probably still stinging from Hoffmeister, but that makes up for like 5%. So
yeah,
please don't steal my players, Cal State LA. Please do not do that.
It's interesting because like obviously there's a 16 pot here, but there's no 15 pots in this class.
Yep.
So I think that's really interesting because I'm just trying to look at like who's the top remaining guys, and like obviously McCall is rated really high, but like he's 5'6.5", like. That I mean, yeah, he might get to 6 feet, maybe.
Yeah, he's small, but I mean,
yeah.
I think he's. Can we look at him real quick just to see his growth, his physical growth? Because I don't think he's grown much at all.
Oh wow!
I mean, he's had one growth, yeah. So that's
it. But he should grow quite a bit more for sure.
Yeah, I think he should have at least one big growth spurt. I'm definitely cheering for the hometown Hogs here, so hopefully they can. But no, I think he's really, really solid. And I'll tell you what, which is weird, and it's probably because I recruit out of there a lot. Arkansas has had some really strong players the last few classes, like a couple 5-star guys for a low population state. I know that's not necessarily how Hardwood does it, but they've had some really good recruits coming out of there.
Yeah, for sure. We talked about Jack Connor. We can take a look at him a little bit just to see like what's going on with his scoring, I guess.
Absolutely. Oh, also shout out Hampton Sydney for completing a recruiting class like 10 days in.
That's crazy.
Very impressive.
Honestly, like nothing stands out for me, like why he's not scoring a lot, I guess.
Yeah,
Um,
super quick. He's yeah, I don't
yeah, he's
know.
quick. He's pretty smart. His shooting's not like out of this world, but like he's a
Not
high school
bad.
senior. I don't. Yeah, I think that's fine. Um, I mean, he's not shooting well this season for some reason. I would think he's playing out of position mostly. He's point guard. I mean, he could be a point guard. I wouldn't put him there, but
No, but I mean, I think I don't know. That one's it's interesting when you look at his points his high school career. It's pretty steady. I mean, that's not
yeah,
some of these other guys are averaging 20 points as freshmen, and so to see him at that 10, and that's another question for the Discord too. How much stock do you put into, if any, into high school stats? I know it's something nice to look at when you're recruiting players, but does it matter at all? Is it any indication of how they'll be in the future? But I don't know.
yeah. I mean, just for me to answer that question, like there's certain things in high school stats that I look at, and there's a lot that I ignore.
Yeah.
Um, I'll look at like how often they take 3-pointers compared to like their total field goals. I'll kind of look at their percentages and their shooting percentages. Um, People think fouls drawn and fouls committed are pretty valuable, so I kind of look at that.
That
But
makes
like
sense.
points per game, I don't really look at like the overall number necessarily, but I'll look at like if there's a trend, or kind of like if they're an elite scorer, then like I figure they'll be an elite scorer. If they're passive, kind of like Jack Connor looks like,
Mhm.
then I'll think they'll be passive in college. And
Yeah.
like I do think there's a little bit of like that hidden personality type of thing in this game, that you have to really like dig deep for. And some people aren't always willing to. I'm not always willing to, certainly.
Yeah. That I think, and not to critique a game that we love so much, but I do think that's one thing I'd love to see. Player personalities that maybe guys want to take that last shot. Maybe guys are just really big distributors and they want to help their teammates out, or some guys just only focus on playing offense. I'd love to see that in this game, in a concrete form that tells us this guy does this guy does that. But it is interesting to kind of figure it out and create it in your own mind a little bit of, this is my clutch guy, this is my guy who's the team guy, all that different stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I think it would be nice, like you said, to see it in more concrete form, but like I appreciate the mystery a little bit, and like getting to write their own narratives, or getting I get to create their own narratives for them, I guess, as they kind of play and reveal themselves to me too, you know. Yeah, so I mean, I can see it both ways for sure. I'm surprised my internet has lasted this long, so
It's great. Yeah.
let's about call it right there. I mean, obviously, like, there's other top prospects we could look at. But I think we just take this win in the bag.
Yeah, fingers crossed. Well, this is a start to a new slate for us as a TPI podcast. Maybe both of our internets are fine from now on. Also,
We'll
quick shout out to Cough Daddy on the Best of the Rest tournament. Make sure you're voting in that, and then make sure you're voting in Hockey TRB 99
Hockey.
World Classic. It's very cool.
Yeah, I like both of those ideas. A lot has been talked about with both of those, I think, previously, before they've actually been done, especially the World Classic one. And I'm glad people finally like put them together. I know I haven't been the best at voting, but I think
Yeah, I mean, I can't. So I'm trying to get other
like,
people to do it.
yeah, we're trying to get other people to do it for sure. But yeah, they're super interesting. I like looking at those World Classic rosters. I'm just like, wow, look, these are stacked rosters.
Oh, it's so cool, right? Yeah, it's so cool.
Yeah.
Especially having guys make them. I think that was the part where when they revealed the West Coast one and all of the TPI hosts had a player on the podcast or on the team. It was really exciting. Shout out to our guys, but that's just fun to see. Kind of adds a little element to it.
Listen, I thought a few more of my players should have made it. I feel a little snubbed,
Hey, they couldn't have everybody just play against Dominican. It's like it's too unfair. So
for sure, no, but I really like that too, like you said. Just seeing my guys make it. Yeah, no, it's awesome. Yeah, so go check those out in the forums. There's threads for each one, and vote if you can and are willing to, for sure, let's keep it going. Let's keep that momentum going.
Last one too. Make sure that if you're interested, NAF has put together an awesome Discord Rivals tournament. So I'm assuming if probably most of the people who watch the YouTube videos also are probably in the Discord, although I know it's not a full Venn diagram. But yeah, that's a really cool option. If you're in a higher Division I team, maybe 1 through 4, whatever, 1 through 3, definitely check that out because there's going to be some really good competition in there, and that only makes you guys better. So
yeah, I don't know if I want to join.
I'm just calling you out, Andrew.
I'm scared. I'm scared, really. Like
Toby Henry is you just have nightmares of him, right?
Yeah, I don't want to face Toby Henry.
Oh gosh.
All right. This is TPI signing off, everyone. See you next time.
Yep. See you next time.